Hello, my name is Matthew Trump, and this is my submission for the last application assignment, assignment 2. So we're going to start off by just cloning the repository as per the instructions that were given, and we can see it's successful. Then we can go ahead and open up the repository as an IntelliJ project. And I really do apologize, my computer is very, very slow, but hopefully we can get through this thing. Okay, so now that it's all up and running and Gradle has initialized its build, I'm going to go ahead and open up all the classes just so I can walk through each and every single one of them before I open up the actual application itself. So we'll start off with the inventory management application. This is just the basic application, just like the last assignment. So I just set the title to Minecraft Inventory Manager, and it's just the basic launch arguments. From there, we'll go on to the controller class. And as you can see from the top of it, I apologize again that it's very laggy. My computer only has 4 gigabytes of RAM, so it's not super great. It's about 10 years old as well. So just in the initialization, we're just setting the columns, the table itself, name, serial value, and then setting the items as the observable list that we declare later in the controller itself. Once we get past all of the buttons and table columns and menu items, we can get to the add items, which is just very simple. I'm just passing a list onto the actual thing. And that's for most of these. The clear list, the edit list, the remove item, I'm really just passing this list onto a list manipulator class. The open help and open about is just opening up another fxml file. And the save and load is just passing, again, the list to these separate files so that they can be either populated or pulled from. And I did add a close program button in my menu, and the inventory searcher here is very cool. Adding a listener to it and being able to decipher whether somebody's inputting values into the actual thing itself and making a filtered list out of the whole thing, so I can display the filtered list after somebody types something into the search bar itself. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the list manipulator class, and we can start off by seeing the add item, and I went ahead and added a decimal formatter so that it wouldn't go 100.0000001 or something like that. And this is just basically setting up a dialog so that instead of making a separate fxml file, I just added a dialog with 3 text boxes so you can edit the name, the serial box, and the value. And then down here, I basically have a whole validation process to see if what the user is entering is correct in the sense of format, so that there's no bad data. So validate value, you can put in any value. It doesn't have to have a decimal place in there, and there can be numbers afterwards as well. Validate serial, that was a little harder for this regex code, making this pattern, but it basically saying there can be any capital or lowercase letter in the first part with a hyphen, and then any capital A lowercase letter and a number for the rest of it. And then I also added a validate serial list within the validate serial, so it would check the list to see if that serial is already in there. And if it is, it'll return false. If not, it'll return true. The validate name function checks to make sure that the length of the name is greater than 2 characters, but less than 256 characters. And if all the validations succeed, then it goes ahead and adds it. And you can see from it that I had to add a bunch of formatters for that as well. But then we go on to clear list. It'll ask the person whether they want to clear the list or not, as a bit of a confirmation. If they do say yes, then it'll clear. For edit list, I did what I did with add list, and I made a dialog pop up with the contents of that item in the prompt text, not as the actual text. And that's very important for this, because if it was the actual text, I ran into a lot of problems during that. But basically right here is saying if that person presses the OK button, it goes ahead and makes sure, hey, if the text is not blank, go ahead and validate it as well. And then if it passes all the validation, then it sets that item to that. And that's about it for the list manipulator class. So we go on to load class, and we can see that I added a bunch of different extension filters, so you can save it as a text, a JSON, or an HTML file. And then basically made another dialog and a switch statement, so it'll figure out which extension you chose. So here from the load text from file, we're basically splitting up the text file based on the tabs and putting it into an array. And then while there's still lines available, it's implementing into the list and adding those info into the array. Load from JSON was a little bit harder to do. Trying to figure out this for statement stumped me for a little while, but I just used the Google JSON library, and I was able to get the strings and get the float value from the JSON file itself. Load HTML from file was even harder for me. I had to use another add-on called JSoup, and deciphering that data or loading that data was a lot harder. I was able to get the size of all the rows and be able to go down through the rows, making sure to look for the TD, because that marked the cell itself, and I was able to get the column values for each one and go through that for loop several times to get all the values in, and of course return the list. So going to the save file, that was very easy in my opinion. Same setup as before with the load file with the extensions and a switch case to figure out which extension the person chose. And then we go down to save text to file, just a printer writer with tabs in between each get name, get value, get serial, going through the entire list that's available. Save to JSON was even easier with JSON. It was just 2 JSON with the list and a writer. Super easy. Save to HTML, like I said before, it's a big block of code, but with a bunch of new lines, I tried to format everything nicely so that the table, when you actually load the HTML file, looked very nice. Again, another for statement to go through everything, but that was basically it for the save and the controller. So now I'm going to go and show you the docs folder and the plant UML document that I have. If it decides to load, here we go. So you can see I tried to put this very nicely, but we start off with the first thing that we talked about, the inventory management application, going to the controller, and the controller really controls everything. It controls the way the data is formatted over in line item data. It controls the loading operation, loading text from a file, or the saving, because the observable list was actually in there. And of course the list manipulator, anything to do with how the list is manipulated belongs in that class. And you can see the fmxl files that I have there, the about, the help, and the Minecraft application. So now from here, I think we're going to go ahead and run our test files. I couldn't do too much with tests because the alerts was having the alert or pop-ups were having problems when I was doing my test files. I'm sure if I could have spent more time looking at that, I could have figured it out. But I went ahead and pulled some data from the list manipulator and from the actual get and set functions themselves from the mine item data class. And as you can see, that all the test cases pass that I tested for. And now we're going to go ahead and run the application. So you'll see from from what I've named things so far, that I've had a lot of mine and mine item and all this. Well, it's because I made this Minecraft inventory manager. My inspiration for this was a childhood game that I always loved to play. It always brought so much joy into my heart, and it's what got me started in gaming and computing, really. And I remember back in the day making mods for this as well. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So you can see our table view and our buttons as minecarts on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a bow item with a normal name, bow, value, and the serial, and you'll see that it added itself to the list. I'm going to go ahead and add another value without a name, so you can see the warning message pop up. And yes, it says name must be between 2 and 256 characters. So of course, if there is no name, it won't put it up there. So even if I do one character, it'll say incorrect or error or whatever, input not valid. And it needs to be between those many characters. So we'll give our item a normal name. Yeah, I'm gonna go for pickaxe. And let's just set the value to 100.0. And for the serial, we'll do the same serial that's already on the table to see if it gives us an error. And of course it does, because I had a combination kind of thing with that error message. So either it's already in use or it's an invalid format. And in this case, it was already in use. So for this one, I'm going to show the rounding feature. If I type in a bunch of numbers afterwards, you don't want it to pop up 432.126431. Instead, we want it to pop up 432.12 or 13, my bad. And as you can see, it pops up like that in the table itself. So go ahead and create another item, torch. And at this point, I'm just really filling out the table with more items. I'm just filling out random information. All right, so right now we have A, B, C, and D. Not bow, because we already have that. So I said arrow. And at this point, I'm doing the invalid format because I put a 1 in front when it can only be a letter in front, whether capital or lowercase. And as you can see, we got the error there. So this is showing the edit functionality. See how it shows the prompt text? So it's not the actual text of the boxes itself, but you can type in a serial, and even with edit, it'll check to see and validate and see that it's already in use. So it goes away, it says you can't do that. So, I mean, you can set it to a different serial and that will work fine. As you can see, E there. Now, nothing is sorted right now, but so it'll remain in its same place that you put it in. So let's go ahead and name this pick, not pick, and do a different serial. So we're doing two different things at once, and as you can see, it'll update both things at the same time. And right here, we're showing off the remove feature here. And it'll give you the name, the value, and the serial number within that pop-up box, so you can make sure that you're getting rid of the right one. So the search feature, as I talked about earlier, is really cool. It only focuses on the name and the serial number itself because, I mean, who's really looking up the search for a value? So, I mean, I typed in a piece of the name to Orch, and you can do either capital or lowercase. It makes sure to look throughout the whole thing. Now, in this case, I was showing I'm showing that you can use the same search for the serial number, and I'm just going to fill in a random item here and give it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so that I could show you that the serial lookup also works. So if I type in 1, 2, 3 here, the random item will pop up. And I can go ahead and clear the list. It'll give me a nice pop-up box, and if I click OK, the whole list is gone. So now I'm going to show off the save and load features. So we're going to go ahead and load a list, and I have already prepared 3 files. to show off this feature. And right there you can see TSV file is selected, but you can choose from JSON and HTML as well. So we're going to go and open up this text file, and you see everything opened up perfectly fine. And all the serial value and name are perfectly validated as well. So we're actually going to open up a JSON file next to show that it also clears the current list view. Or table view, my bad. It clears out the table view, puts us our new test values in there, new serials, new values, whatever. And finally, we're going to show HTML here. And finally, I'm going to show HTML here. And you can see the list cleared and everything looks beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and add another value so I can show you that the save feature works properly and that I'm not cheating when it comes to this. So I just filled in Q for all of that, and I can go ahead and file and save. And we're first going to start out and save it into that same folder. And you can also see the default name is Minecraft INV or Minecraft inventory. So that'll always be the default no matter where you put it, but you can always change the value if you want. In these cases, I don't change the value. So I can go ahead and open up that text file, and you can see that everything is separated with tabs and new lines to make the format. And it looks very ugly in my opinion, but the HTML one looks a lot better, and you'll see that soon. So now I'm going to go ahead and show saving as a JSON file in that same area. You can see I'm not opening up the test files. They are new files because you can see the test and the normal one in there. But as I open this up with Notepad++, you can see how everything is formatted. It is all in one line. I didn't use the pretty format, but it is a JSON file nonetheless, and it is the correct format. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and save this file as an HTML into that same area. And I'm just showing the actual plain text of what everything looks like and how it's all separated out. It was very important for me to look at that while I was figuring out the load feature. But if I go ahead and open it up in Firefox, you'll see how a very nice formatted table is presented. And I just named it inventory for example's sake. But everything looks really nice. It's in the same order that user put it in, but still nonetheless very nice. And we can go ahead and clear the list as well. Finally, the how-to help guide shows step-by-step instructions for how to do everything when it comes to the program, whether it be adding, searching, editing, filtering, clearing, saving, loading, or removing an item. And when you use the program, you're very welcome to test out how clear I was on the instructions. Finally, I also added an about just to show the program was made by me, for what class and what application assignment it was, and I also threw in a copyright in there. Also at the top of all my code is a copyright as well, just to make sure nobody steals it. And of course, there's a close button within there. Instead of pressing the X, you can just press the close button and it'll pop up with a dialog asking if you really want to close, and you can close it. I also want to show off the sorting functionality of this. So I'm going to go ahead and load another file, and I'll just do a JSON file. And you can actually sort, and it says it in the how-to, but you can sort by just clicking on the tab at the top. And you can see that Q went all the way up to the top there, and it's only because it's a lowercase letter, whereas the uppercase takes precedence. And you can also do the same with value. And notice also it's not sorting the column itself, it's sorting the rows based off of the column. So X is moving along with 21.57. And that is all. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great day.